It's a sad day to be a Charles Oliveira fan. I feel like it's going to be a sad week. Going through this fight week, we're going to see Charles Oliveira. We're going to get hyped. We're going to be excited to see him fight. But I feel like Charles Oliveira will never win a fight again after losing to Michael Chandler. So yes, I actually do think Michael Chandler has what it takes to beat Charles Oliveira now. You're probably going to look at me like I'm crazy, and I understand why. Rightfully so. Like, you're probably like, Kenny, Charles in his last 4 fights, he's 2 for 2. He's still a talented fighter. He's elite. He's great. Charles Oliveira is talented, yes, but his fight style, and that's what I'm really going to be talking about today. His fight style, I'm sorry, it has no longevity to it. And I feel like he's at that age. I believe he's 34. Still, you might think that's still young, but I feel like the experience and the fights he's had, I feel like he's at that point of his career where that fight style just can't work against certain opponents. Yes, he beat Michael Chandler, and you're probably like, Kenny, he's going to just beat him again. Yes, he beat people like Dustin Poirier. He beat people like Justin Gaethje. What do all those fights have in common? Charles Oliveira was going through adversity, then he finds a way to win. Now, I'm not saying this guy's fight style is just based on luck. Of course, there's skill that goes into this. When you're walking forward continuously, eating a lot of shots, getting rocked, getting dropped, and then you lay on your back, have some time to recover, then get back up, this is a problem with that fight style. It doesn't have great longevity to it. If you guys remember someone named Tony Ferguson, some people not gonna remember him, but like there was an old guy named Tony Ferguson, right? The same exact fight style. He would go in there. He was a pretty like decent striker in the realm that like he could hurt you, he could slice you up, he could cut you up, similar to Charles. They both have power that is low-key slept on. But they would get punished a lot in the fight, and they'll arguably be losing their fights before they find a way to guillotine finish, find some kind of submission or win. What happened with Tony Ferguson? Eventually, that style caught up to him, and that damage he was taking early on in the fight, there was a point where he just couldn't recover from that in time and then find a way to win. I see Charles Oliveira as someone very similar. I feel like he's getting to that point where, like, he could take some damage, yes, but, like, is his recovery going to always be as good as it was in 2 or 3 years ago when he was fighting Chandler, when he was fighting Gaethje, when he was fighting Dustin? He was fighting these guys in, like, 2022, 2021. I know that seems like just yesterday he was beating these guys on this crazy streak, but it wasn't. Now, you're going to bring up the Dariush fight, and let me just bring up a point in the Dariush fight. He was taking a lot of damage. People forgot on their feet immediately. He was just walking forward, like, eating shots from Dariush because he just didn't know how to defend intelligently. And I feel like, yes, Dariush, he was able to weather that storm and chin Dariush, who I feel like his chin was kind of effy before that, you know what I'm saying? But it's actually a very impressive win because I feel like the longer that fight would have won, the more clear it's going to be that Dariush was probably the better fighter, quote unquote, because I feel like he could last longer than Charles. Now, you're going to bring up the Charles versus Chandler fight that's happening this weekend. And I just feel like Charles, is no doubt in my mind that Charles is going to hurt him again. I know Charles is going to hurt him in this fight. It's a matter of, does Charles still have that same dog in him to recover, to still fight through it? Well, let's point at the Arman-Tsarukyan fight. So in the Arman fight, Arman, before that fight, was known to have the striking disadvantage against Charles. People forget really quickly that they were saying, dude, Charles, dude, I don't know, he's a way better striker, dude. He's more cowabunga, dude. He's going to go in there, he's going to outstrike Arman. That was the narrative, and I know people are going to try to switch the narrative now and be like, nah, we already knew Arman was a better striker, but that wasn't the case going into the fight. They expected Charles to have a significant advantage on the feet, and they thought Arman was going to wrestle him to victory. Every single time that fight was standing, Charles Oliveira was at a disadvantage. He was getting pieced up, he was getting licked up, he was getting punched up, he was getting axe kicked in the face. Bro, everything that could have went wrong on the feet was going wrong. To a point where, like, he'll get to these exchanges with Arman, and he'll be glad to be on his back. Now, complacency on his back, this is another flaw in his fight style. Not just his striking, but I feel like how complacent Charles is on his back now. Against certain people who have a wrestling background, they know when they have Charles on the ground to put weight on him or like some kind of weight or pressure on top of him to avoid him from throwing up submissions. We've seen it with Islam and Arman. They're really good at like applying enough pressure to even land ground and pound while smothering Charles. Now, the problem with this is when Charles doesn't really know when he's in a compromised position because he's so used to being on his back. So if Chandler was to take him down, he would be the type to just like keep trying to throw up something even when he has no chance or no likelihood to throw it up because he trusts his BJJ so much. Now, if Chandler was doing film work, he should have more faith in his wrestling background and shouldn't just like let Charles off the hook if he rocks him. For example, if he rocks Charles, he shouldn't be like, oh, get back up like Gaethje and Dustin was doing. He should be more inclined to like jump on him and go for a ground and pound and finish. So there's a lot of flaws in this fight style, and I feel like after watching the Arman fight, after seeing the fight leave the first round where Arman already beat him, and I feel like Arman 30-27 him first of all, but I know some judges gave it 2-1. Even a judge gave 2 rounds to Charles because of submission attempts. Now, that is what Charles showed me in that fight. There's nothing else Charles showed me in that fight that showed that he's in his prime or he's improved other than he almost choked someone out. Now, one thing we know about Charles, he always almost chokes people out with good wrestling, a good BJJ. We've seen it with Islam. We've seen he almost choked out Islam. He almost threw up a submission against Islam. We've seen it against Arman. We've seen it against Tony. He almost finished these guys who could grapple well. It was no surprise. So that didn't surprise me that he almost submitted Arman-Tsarukyan. That's not surprising. I know to a lot of people like, oh, he almost submitted, almost. I'm not like that, bro. I don't feel that way. Charles is good for what he's good at. You can only be so good at something for a long period of time until you get figured out. I feel like Charles at the point of the career, he's figured out, and I just feel like he's probably never gonna win a fight again. I just feel like he's in, I don't want to say the Tony Ferguson-esque run. I don't think he's gonna go on like a long losing streak. There are still people who Charles can beat, but as far as the striking realm, he's a little bit too risky in the striking realm. Especially against someone like Chandler, who's going to go against this weekend. I just don't think it's a good idea to walk forward kind of goofy and just eat some punches against Chandler, who has the capabilities of knocking you out. Your chin can only last so long. You're taking so much damage in all these fights. Just eating shots, getting dropped, recovering, all this shit. You can only take so much damage. And when you're taking this damage, you're always inclined to pull guard and do these stupid things. But pulling guard, like when he pulled guard against Islam, he put himself in a compromising position. When he pulled guard against Dariush was starting to land some ground and pound, starting to land some better shots on him. He just pulls guard on people because it's almost like a defense mechanism. When he's worried, when he's nervous, he immediately goes to pulling guard because he doesn't really want to stand on the feet with him. Now, Michael Chandler, I really believe that Michael Chandler, after watching Islam and Arman Sarukian, is going to trust his wrestling. I know he's not known for having great wrestling. He has some great slams. If you've seen Michael Chandler go against Dustin or Justin or anybody in the UFC, he's very he knows how to wrestle. He knows how to maneuver his body. And last time he did get knocked out by Charles ultimately because Charles' power prevailed. Now in 2021, when they last fought, Charles knocked out Michael Chandler in the second round. Now, after watching the Arman Sarukian fight versus Charles, it showed me that Charles' endurance is slowly starting to take a turn for the worse. The longer the fights go since then, I feel like Charles doesn't have that magnitude. Charles versus Arman in the third round, in the second round, Charles only landed 5 total strikes. His strike output goes down, and he threw 9 total strikes in the second round. He threw 17 in the third round. So his strike output is not only going down as the fight elongates, but he's just not throwing a lot of shots. He's not taking a lot of risks because what's he looking for? He's looking for that one moment. Now, when you have a fight style and you're relying on that one moment, and that one moment never shows up, there's one or two things that can happen. You're getting tagged up to a point where Michael Chandler is probably going to beat you by decision, or you get hit too hard and you can't recover. So this whole thing about, he could beat me up on the feet, I'm going to just find my moment where I'm going to submit him. It's too risky of a style, and I feel like it's a little bit outdated. I feel like as time goes along, people are starting to figure out the puzzle of Charles Oliveira. It's not at first it was a little bit like, oh, what's we going to do with this guy? He's very scary on the feet. He has crazy grappling. We can't deal with him. But now I feel like after him watching some of these fights, Michael Chandler, he's going to realize Charles is good at what he's good at, which is BJJ. Other than that, his striking is a little bit overrated. Yeah, you got caught by him a couple years ago because he landed a flush left hook, and maybe Michael Chandler's lack of defense and kind of non-fight IQ that fatigued him led to those reasonings. I'm hoping Michael Chandler wakes up a little bit and actually knows who he's going in there with. I'm really surprised, like I said, that Charles is a huge favorite to win this because I feel like they're really sleeping on Michael Chandler. But like I said, I'm not even trying to hate on Charles too much. I love him as a fighter, one of my favorites. I just feel like that style of fighting is a little bit outdated. It reminds me of a Yuri Prochazka as well, except Yuri Prochazka doesn't have the grappling. But the best comparison is Tony Ferguson. But even people like Yuri, at a point in your career, your fight style kind of gets outdated and people figure you out. At first, it's like, oh my God, how do you deal with this guy? And then once they figure you out, it's almost like, holy shit, this is not as hard as I thought. And another thing with Charles, when he first beat Michael Chandler, he was riding crazy momentum. That's another thing to look into. It wasn't like he was a bum. He was riding crazy momentum. Now he's winning some, losing some, winning some, losing some. So he's back and forth. And the guy he beat, Dariush is a great win in the last 3 years. That's a great feather in your hat. But do I think Dariush is on the level of Michael Chandler as far as diversity, from striking, wrestling? No, I do think Dariush is a great grappler though, but I just feel like striking everything, Michael Chandler has that advantage. So when I look at this fight, I not only think Michael Chandler beats Charles, I think after Michael Chandler beats Charles, that fight style is going to be hard for Charles against anyone in that division. I heard Charles wanted Max Holloway. He called him out recently. So maybe if Max Holloway comes up, he has a decent chance against them. But you also see Max Holloway just battering Charles on the feet and kind of just overwhelming him with accumulation of volume. So, bro, I don't know no matter what way you slice the cake, I'm kind of looking at Charles Oliveira. Talented fighter, talented grappler, most importantly. But when you are on the feet with dangerous strikers and you kind of just let them beat you up. He's not letting them beat them up, but he doesn't have the defensive abilities to actually block adequately enough to avoid the damage. That's not good. And then another thing, when you get taken down and you're very complacent on your back because you trust your BJJ so much and you're just looking for that one submission, Charles, get that one submission, bro. You're doing too much and you're risking so much with those perfect veneers in your teeth, bro. Sorry, you can have perfect veneers, but you still can't submit these jobs. You know what I'm saying? you can't submit him. So I feel like Charles might have a moment in this fight where he almost locks in a submission. Everyone's going to go crazy. Having moments in a fight isn't winning a fight, unfortunately. Like, people who thought Armin lost because Armin was getting, has been put in compromising positions after beating him up the whole round, I don't agree with those narratives. And I feel like Charles Oliveira overall is just going to struggle with Michael Chandler and anyone else he fights after that, because I don't feel like he's going to take any other easy fights after that. So great style of fighting, but that style of fighting, it's ran out, bro. The time's over for it. So I feel like Charles Oliveira, unfortunately, I feel like his time's come. I don't think he's going to be champion again. And I feel like that fight style is just outdated. Either improve your defense, improve something, because if you're coming there as the same Charles Oliveira, I don't think you beat Michael Chandler, and I don't think you beat a lot of top 5 guys. But that's it for me. Let me know what y'all think down below. I think I made some valid points, but I know the Charles fans are going to come at me because they're a crazy fan group. But like I said, I love Charles. I just think his fight style is outdated, and I think it is what it is. But that's it for me, and God bless. 2, 3.